In Lovers of Sophia, Jason Rezardorjani talks about Immanuel Kant's famous concept of the categorical imperative. He writes, "In a being whose will is not perfectly determined by reason, actions that are cognized as objectively necessary are imperatives, or commands of reason. They indicate an ought. Imperatives are either hypothetical or categorical. Hypothetical imperatives are those that command actions undertaken toward some other end, actions which are means toward some end beyond themselves. Whereas the categorical imperative would be an action represented as objectively necessary in itself." What he's saying here is that some actions tend toward certain things. For instance, when you drink water, it's a means toward quenching your thirst. However, certain things are not means. They're ends in and of themselves, like honor, justice, truth, prudence, and so forth. In Of Moral Ends, Cicero talks about the purpose of a thing, what the Greeks call a telos, and he says, "What the Greeks called telos is the supreme, the ultimate, and the final good. Telos is not a means to anything higher than itself, but rather is the end to which everything else is a means." For instance, we like truth for truth's sake. It's not a means to anything else. If pressed as to why we find truth preferable to lying, we might admit that in the end, it's a mere value judgment, an aesthetic consideration. We pick truth because as a society we consider truthfulness more beautiful behavior than lying. All of our ends are chosen for the same aesthetic considerations. Of course, not every society has the same ends. For instance, Aristotle says that the end goal of an oligarchy is the transfer of the wealth from the many to the few. He says that the end goal of a republic is virtue. He says that the end goal of a democracy, by contrast, is equality. In the ancient world, justice was stressed as an end. This conflicts with equality in a very profound way. Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, and David Hume all define justice as giving a person their due. Not more, not less. So if you chip in for 1/6 of a pizza, you get 1/6 of the pie. That would be justice. To get 2/6 would not be justice because you didn't pay for 2/6. In a society that favors equality, however, you might find somebody claiming that it's okay to violate justice and give another man a piece of pie that he didn't pay for. When challenged as to why, the excuse would be to make everyone equal, regardless of the effort or the merit that they put into it. So this end goal of equality violates justice. Aristotle says, the greatest inequality resides in trying to make unequal things equal. But in a society that values equality above justice, you'll make excuses for such things. You'll rob somebody who worked for something and give it to somebody who didn't, upon the premise that irrespective of the moral violation, they're all equal in the end. And equality is the main thing, right? Right? Well, in many societies, equality would not be the main thing. Justice would be. It depends upon who's doing the course setting for the society, who sets the values. In The Code of Trust by Dreeke, he writes, "To be the leader of your tribe, be the person who sets the goal that's so good that everyone wants to achieve it." There's a saying in the Marines that's become one of my guiding lights. Anytime 2 or more Marines are together, one becomes the leader, and the leader is the one who sets the goal. This is true not just in the military, but in politics, business, and life. Whoever sets the goals is the person in power. They're the ones steering the ship. In our society, we call these goals values. All laws are merely means to achieve the ends of these values. Alistair McIntyre, in his book After Virtue, talks about how managers in a business or political institution are the ones who set the goals.
Of course, both aesthete and therapist are doubtless as liable as anyone else to trade in such fictions, but they have no fictions which are peculiarly their own, which belong to the very definition of their role. With the manager, that dominant figure of the contemporary scene, it is quite otherwise. For beside rights and utility, among the central moral fictions of the age, we have to place the peculiarly managerial fiction embodied in the claim to possess systematic effectiveness in controlling certain aspects of social reality. And this thesis may, at first sight, seem surprising for 2 quite different kinds of reason. We are not accustomed to doubt the effectiveness of managers in achieving what they set out to achieve, and we are equally unaccustomed to think of effectiveness as a distinctively moral concept, to be classed with such concepts as those of rights or of utility. Managers themselves, and most writers about management, conceive of themselves as morally neutral characters, whose skills enable them to devise the most efficient means of achieving whatever end is proposed. Whether a given manager is effective or not is, on the dominant view, a quite different question from that of the morality of the ends which his effectiveness serves or fails to serve. Nonetheless, there are strong grounds for rejecting the claim that effectiveness is a morally neutral value. For the whole concept of effectiveness is, as I noticed earlier, inseparable from a mode of human existence in which the contrivance of means is in central part the manipulation of human beings into compliant patterns of behavior, and it is by appeal to his own effectiveness in this respect that the manager claims authority within the manipulative mode.
He's right. Though managers pretend to be morally neutral, they're not. Why? Because they're the ones setting the goals. And the goals of any organization are the values. This is a lesson for anyone who's in charge of setting the climate in a business. Be mindful of what means you're using, but more importantly, to what ends. Whoever sets the ends is the one in charge. Leadership consists of setting the ends. So to be a leader means, at its very essence, to be the moral compass of an institution. Conversations That Matter, hosted by Alex Newman, interviews key people with important information to share that they, big government, don't want you to hear. Information that might save your life and family, literally, as well as your liberty. Check it out on thenewamerican.com.